Hi, I'm Reggie Mara, Creative Director at Teleosis Institute. I'm here today with my colleague, Executive Director of the Institute, Dr. Joel Kreisberg. And we're going to unpack today what we mean by a healing narrative, especially when it's contrasted with an illness narrative. And rather than just talk about it, Joel is actually going to share with us an example from his own life that he's been negotiating in recent days. So with that, Joel, can you just let us know exactly what it is that you're going to be talking about?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm just going to launch into it. I've been struggling with a little health complaint. And so I figured, I'm going to start by telling you what my pains and aches. And I think this is what I call an illness narrative. I kind of get sore. I go to the gym and it feels like I get sore, and it's like, so I sort of do different exercises, or I lay off, or I do this, but pretty soon I realize that the soreness isn't really going away, and I'm actually having these kind of muscle aches in my arms, you can see there, and it actually starts to be something that I kind of notice a lot, and it gets to the point where I'm kind of lying in bed at night, and it's like it hurts to move my arms, so it's waking me up at night, and it's like, what could be going wrong with my body? And I can do a little hot tub here, or if it really bothers me, I could always take like an analgesic. But after, I would say it's been a couple of months now, I really have to come to the conclusion that I got something going on here, and I better start to do something about it.
Okay, so if I could just, in a really generic way, capture that you have these symptoms, they're painful, you're paying attention to them, and you're trying different things, but it's affecting your life, and over a period of time, it's not going away. There's something wrong, and it would be really nice if it could be fixed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I got to the point recently where I said, you know what, I doing what I'm doing, which is sort of fiddling around with it, is not enough. I need to actually consciously decide to, fixing always has one of those things. I consciously decide to try and alleviate the symptoms.
Yeah, I deliberately said fixing, so I know you know that. Yeah. So would you then, if you were going to characterize that, would you characterize that as what we call an illness narrative?
Yeah, I call that an illness narrative. I think it's a pretty common description that you have when you go into a medical office, or a body worker's office, or even a therapist's office, but you don't go for somatics. And fairly typically the interview would get more detail about it. Is it better? Is it worse? There's all, when did it begin, and stuff like that, until we really have the story. This is a very little story, but it could be that I have fibromyalgia and I took a blood test, and a big story, but we're just going to keep it a little small because we want to keep the video small.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So then the question begs itself, how could you share that story, or what would that story look and or sound like from a healing perspective, as a healing narrative, as opposed to an illness narrative?
Well, it's the healing narrative part, is how I orient from this. So, there's that moment where I need to do something about this. And so I'm going to say, how is it a healing narrative? Well, this is what I do to do something about this. I say, well, maybe I need to understand this more. So I'm going to get help. I'm going to get help from a practitioner. And so in this case, I have an ongoing relationship with an acupuncturist. So I started with the acupuncturist, and the acupuncturist basically, I went in last night, the acupuncturist says to me, well, there seems like there's something going on with your sacrum and your occiput. So you might want to go to a chiropractor. So I got more information, and I've made my appointment for the chiropractor. And then, there's something about liver, and, he gives me some more information. And then what I notice is that I begin to start to think, how am I going to engage myself in terms of what I need to do to start to heal? Okay, and so what I think of doing is saying, why don't I, see my acupuncturist. Yeah, I'll go get adjusted to make sure my spine's okay. And, you know, because sometimes I have sensitivities in my diet, I'll start to orient around what I might eat to be healing for me. And of course, I can do it on my own, but it hasn't been working so well. So I'm going to go visit someone who's going to, you know, help me with my diet. So I'm using professionals as part of my healing narrative, but it is also about, it's very much about, well, I got to get a better understanding. I got to manage myself differently. So I'm going to take more time, you know, and I'm going to then see how that affects me overall.
Yeah, so I really appreciate that you didn't, sometimes people hear us speak about the difference between an illness and a healing narrative, and they're hearing that practitioners just get in the way because they diagnose things and try to fix them. And we're not saying that at all. In fact, we're actually saying that rather than you know, seeing what's going on as a problem that needs just to be fixed, we want to better understand it. And this is the language you just used. Once we understand it, we can manage it better, and that might mean a variety of things. And then the last part, which I'd love if you could address a little bit, which we often speak about in healing, is finding meaning in what's going on.
Right. Well, thank you for asking that, and I was assuming you probably would. You know, so the question is, how is it meaningful for me? And this is actually what's fun about healing narratives in general is that, you know, none of these practitioners are going to ask me how it's meaningful. But if I'm working with a coach, which I'm doing right now, that becomes something I can do. So how is this meaningful for me? And so I go, well, it's meaningful for me because I'm learning that my body gives me sensations and information that tells me I need to do something different. Right? It might, you know, it's like that gives me a chance to slow down and look at the way my life is organized and say, well, what can I do that may, you know, that is out of line in some way or another? I mean, when the acupuncturist says it's liver, I begin to think, oh, well, I know a little bit about cosmology, and liver has to do with springtime, and spring is coming, and you know, liver is also about really using your energy a lot. Am I using my energy the way I like it? Perhaps I need to sort of rebalance my energy in some way, or just to notice it in some way. So I think it becomes really meaningful for me because it reinforces my relationship with my body as a living, growing dynamic that I need to regularly stop and attend to. And it's really great. I do it by, I mean, I haven't been to anybody in a while, but the message was I need to get some feedback so I can make some changes. And, you know, I guess I should bring it to my health coach and we can talk about, you know, deepening my meaning. So I could make a bigger story, but for our purposes, that's how it's meaningful.
Yeah, great. I appreciate that. And so it's the, you know, the health coach is going to ask questions that a diagnosing practitioner may not ask, and vice versa. Obviously, you know, an acupuncturist or a chiropractor or some other integrative physician is going to ask some specific questions within his or her specialty, and the coach will ask some questions that go that complement, you know, I think what the health care practitioner provides.
Yeah, actually, it's complement and actually allows you to see the larger whole picture, right? So, you know, that's where I guess I heard myself get to energy dynamics. And in a lot of ways, it's like, well, am I balanced in the way that I'm showing up for work and life and all the different loads in my life? And what's really important to me, which is what meaning is about. And so in this case, what's really important to me about is my health. Wanting to do something about it, but seeing that health in relationship, in chorus with my work and my community and my social life.
So it's this more comprehensive sense of balance, it sounds as though, what we're talking about there. And would it be fair to, again, summarize this in terms of, you know, to reflect your language back to you, that the healing narrative, the healing story, really carries with it the ability for us, or for you in this particular case, to understand what's going on to the extent that you can, to better, you know, manage the resources that are available to you, to take care of it in some way. And then, you know, the I don't want to say the bonus, but an underlying part then is to find meaning in all of that as well.
Yeah, and no, it's what came up for me listening to you, but yes, exactly. I agree with you. What came up is then if you and I were working as a health coach, we could possibly craft what I might do to continue this vector of healing.
Right.
That becomes what the practice is about, not should I exercise more or change my diet, which is all what you can do as a health coach, but you can also do that as a chiropractor or an integrated physician. This allows us to sort of say, well, how could I engage this level of conversation as I move forward, and to learn how to do that without the coach,
Right.
which is kind of why I don't need a coach so much, because I built this system myself, and this reminds me that I probably should go sit down and journal this weekend about what I'm learning from this particular setting, and maybe we can videotape that the next time.
Okay. So good. Anything else you want to add to that before we begin to bring this to a close?
No, I think that's a really good, I told my mini illness narrative, and I told a mini healing narrative, and it reminds me of what we do in the class.
Yeah. So just as a quick, not aside, but a beginning of the ending of this little conversation is, we do offer a narrative healing class, which I'll be teaching this time around. And it begins on March 24th. You can learn a lot more about it on our website, teleosis.org, to really experience your own healing narrative in whatever you happen to be dealing with in your life at this time.
Yeah, actually, one of the things I love about the class is that you have to do this work yourself, and then you actually do this work in partners, and you get to hear everybody go through this sort of going from illness narrative to healing narrative, and then how do I go off and use this with other people. You don't actually even have to be a health professional to do it. So fairly typically, we attract a wide variety of individuals, from coaches all the way to physicians to therapists, to do this kind of work. And it's, I just took the class last time and I really enjoyed it. And so, and we offer the class several times a year. So.
Great. So with that, again, this is Reggie Mara, Creative Director at Teleosis Institute, with my colleague, the Executive Director of Teleosis, Dr. Joel Kreisberg, and we've been speaking about what we mean by a healing narrative, especially, but not only, when it's contrasted with an illness narrative. Thank you, Joel.